Picked up this beautiful Norco Sight C2 the other day. Absolutely love it. A little bit heavy, about 16 kilos, so not a great climbing bike, but I'm gonna do some laps of my local and see how it goes on some 50-60 meter elevation climbs. But I've noticed that since buying it, the gear changes are not as silky smooth as they probably should be, so I'm going to change the outer sheath and I'll show you how I do it. Okay, first step, index that down just so that you're working on the smallest cassette ring. Oh, listen to those i9 hubs. Ah, so I always keep some spare cables. And brake cables and gear cables are different. So this one is spiral wound, which means it's a brake cable. This one is linearly round, configured, so it is a gear cable. These are the tiny little strands that you can see that run longitudinally along the edge of the cable sheath, and that is what provides the frictionless surface. So all I've done is just to hold one end of the empty cable at the gear changer, and I'm just going to feed this or run this down just to make sure I've got plenty of cable, and I do. So this is just a sizing check just to make sure that I'm not going to run out of cable. Okay, got a little access hatch here, so we're going to undo that. So one side is the brakes, and that's the benefit of a single chainring, one less gear cable. So the next trick is to pull out this bottom cable tie. I've just used a pair of needle nose just to pull that forward, and that goes around both cables. Pull that out, and there we go. Now, you cannot run the sheath from the cassette all the way through the frame up to the head, so you have to start here and work your way back down, and that's because you cannot pull the cable through this way. Okay, down to the cassette. So first step is to take the clutch off so that you can actually move the arm, otherwise it's very difficult to move this and do any work on the cassette. And we just want to basically unscrew the cable, and when it's loose we can pop this cable out and start. There we go, that's out. Just take the little ferrule off. Okay, so this is a Dior XT. I think it's an 8100 changer there. So just so that you know, if you ever do want to replace the cable, you use a Phillips head, quarter turn. It's a little plastic, basically it's like a screw cap seal, and it just looks like that. But this has to be in the smallest chainring position, so it's got to be indexed all the way down to gear tooth gear number 12, which is a 10 tooth gear on your rear cassette. And this is so this cable is aligned in this position, and the cable will now pop out of the end here. So start by pulling the cable out like that. It'll just pop out the end here. Now that plastic cap's off, leave the ferrule in place. I'm going to replace this cable, by the way. If you're going to replace one, you may as well replace both. What you now have to do is you have to measure up the old cable with the new one so that you can cut it. So line up one end like so, work it around like so. So that's the other end. Now you want a fairly heavy duty pair of pliers here that are fairly sharp, and cut it. So you've now got two ends of this cable, one that's just been cut and the other end that hopefully came from the factory, and hopefully the end that came from the factory is an easier one to thread the cable through. So first things first, I'm going to feed the sheath through, and I want to pick the end that has the better open end as the one to feed the cable in. So I'll keep that one at this end, and so the rest cable just starts to feed that in. Pop that through that little rubber gland like so. Pick it up at the other end. Now there's going to be a little trick here, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use a little device to scoop the cable out so that when you see the sheath come through here with a torch, you can grab it and pull it out. So what I've got is I've got an old bit of, this is a bit of stainless steel, but you can use anything, a bit of coat hanger wire, and as soon as you see it come through, you pull it and pull the sheath out, ready to go. So you can just see, if I get this in exactly the right position, there we go, you can just see the cable. So this is the midpoint of the frame. So the idea now is to get my little hook and scoop that cable out. So I've just got that scooped, and it's just a matter of jiggling it, and there we go, just like that. So that's the first one done. Now you obviously have to follow the original cable path, so which means bringing that out underneath the shock, that beautiful Fox Float factory shock, extra volume for extra squishiness. And I don't want to cross these over, so I'm going to try and get it in the right position to start with. The next battle is to feed it in through the rear triangle, like so, and hopefully we can get it out at the other end. This is the back of the triangle, and what I've got to do is I've got to use my little hook here to grab the cable as it comes through. So it's a bit hard to see with a torch, but this is the way I'm going to do it. I was able to use this to sort of scallop underneath the cable and pull it up, and it popped out. It took about 5 minutes, a little bit of patience. So I've got those cables on the right side now. It's a very tight run, so I'm hoping that this new cable does the trick. And then that just folds into that rear cassette ferrule there. There's the other ferrule. Slide that in like so, and in we go. So first things first, replace the cable. Okay, now that we've got our cable 99% of the way through, or our outer sheath I should say, it's just a matter of feeding the cable. And these are nice. These have got a nice little weldlet on the end so that the ends don't splay out. Just keep poking that through. Don't forget your ferrule. Make sure this goes the right way. So this is going to go underneath and come around like so. Feed that in. Pop that into the ferrule, which is already in there. Start feeding the cable through. And what we're looking for, obviously, is the cable to eventually poke out at the other end. Hooray! No, we don't want that. Ferrule on. Give those a twist clockwise. Spin that on like so. Sheath goes over the top. Nice snug fit through there. Bingo. One cable, one outer. Make sure it's all pulled through and seated up at the shifter end, and we are good to go. Cable lug cut back in. That is cheap plastic crap. Okay, feed that through. Now I fully expect this to be loose and need some adjustment. So pull that cable so it feels tight. Just give that a bit of a tweak, but not too tight. We'll do some sample gear changes. Alright, put this back in. This little weather seal. Okay, not too tight, it is carbon fibre. So when you're putting this centre plug back in, this weather cap, you have to feed the fat end through like so, and then it has to go back in the bike. So what that means is when you bring this around, you've got to use your little hook tool again to grab the end of the cable tie. There we go. Prove it's not a fluke. Do that in real time. Feed that through, pop that in. Trusty cable ties. So when you're cutting this, give yourself a bit of space, about 30 millimeters. Bought a set of aluminium cable tidies, little clamp-on ferrules, years ago. I think a little packet of 10 or 20 was about, I don't know, $1. Won't break the bank. So neaten it up, put that on your cable, and then it won't splay out. And we'll just run that through the gears, make sure it doesn't catch. Beautiful. Done. And we are done. Alright, so I'll just give this a bit of a spin. hasn't been adjusted yet. Very nice. Very last step, these two securing cable ties. Just feed those through the last one. Okay. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you change gear cables on a Norco Sight. This happens to be a C2 full carbon, full rear carbon triangle. I was lucky enough to pick one up with i9 rims. Listen to that sound. So, here we go, Industry 9, beautiful. It's also got Magura 203mm discs, 200mm dropper, death grips, beautiful Fox factory 38mm forks, absolutely magnificent, super plush, 4-pot brakes. This thing is just a weapon. A little bit heavy at 16.5 kilos, 16 odd kilos, but absolutely, only had it for a little while. Loving it so far. Just need to do some big climbs and see how it goes on climbs. Yep, thought so. Pretty hot today.
Yeah, you've got to be a bit of an idiot to go out riding in this sort of weather. Righto, back up to the trailhead, or one of the entry points, one of the drop-ins. Gears are changing beautifully, by the way, so got that right pretty much bang on. So basically, because it was set to the previous position and it indexes really nicely and it's good gear, XT. So anyway, I'm going to take this for a ride, bit of single track, bit of downhill, and then a climb. Okay, down we go. Okay, so this bike does lots of things very well, but can it climb? So I climbed up this last week on a Scott Genius 920 carbon, which is about a kilo and a bit lighter than this bike, and also it's got 32 gear teeth, not 34. So I'm already in granny gear and we'll see how we go. This bike also does not have lockout. So there's a bit of bob, bit of sink, and we'll just grind our way up and see how we go. Okay, seat down, nice little descent.